ENT 110 students, hi, Catherine Robertson here, your instructor, and we are going to be looking at Chapter 2 in this short instructional video. And Chapter 2 from your text starts to talk about the entrepreneurial journey and pathways that entrepreneurs take. So there are 4 sections in Chapter 2. Some of you, if you're watching this video, you may have trouble opening the Chapter 2 PowerPoint. For some reason, Chapter 2 PowerPoint, no matter how many times I try to load it, it won't open properly for some reason on Blackboard. So when you go into the Chapter 2 PowerPoint, there are 3 little dots over to the right as you're looking at your screen. I guess it would be over here, the way the video is going. Those 3 little dots, click on that, and it'll give you some options. One of the options is to download. So download the PowerPoint, and you can open it in a traditional format from your downloads. And it opens fine. It just won't open in that package. I tried to redo it and upload it, and I don't know why it won't. I'm not sure. I will keep working on it, though. Okay, so Chapter 2. Hopefully you enjoyed Chapter 1 and you were able to get through Chapter 1. Chapter 2 has 4 sections. There's a quick overview of the entrepreneurial journey, starting to talk about how you become an entrepreneur, some examples of pathways, and then some frameworks that help with your entrepreneurial pathway. There are quite a few slides in Chapter 2 if you are looking at the PowerPoint. And, this idea of rewards and risks, some entrepreneurs are pretty good at handling risk, right? Mitigating risk, but also stomaching risk, right? You've got to be able to take risks if you're going to make changes and innovate. And as like a scientist, right, you've got to keep trying until you get it to the point that you want. You've got to be self-directed and on your pathway, right? Just keep trying. Because it is always that time that you give up might have been the time right before it goes all the way, right? And you get to finally start the business. You come up with that idea, whatever it might be, right? Come up with a breakthrough idea. Just keep going is one of the key components of this idea of the entrepreneurial journey. And so in Chapter 2, we will look at some of the steps that are out there, right? And look at some of the steps that you can take. Let's get around some of the factors that might be stopping you, right? Change your mindset. And so thinking about, there's a couple metaphors that are offered up in Table 2.1 in your text that start to talk about a hiker, and which path are we going to take, right? And this idea of reflection, right? Why do you have self-doubt? What is this fear of unknown, right? We all have the fear of unknown. Every day is really, though, if we think about it, an unknown is unknown territory. What's today, right? Tomorrow, if you think about going to sleep tonight, and hopefully you get some sleep, and then waking up tomorrow morning, we don't exactly know what's going to happen. It is the unknown. Do you fear tomorrow, like every single second of tomorrow? No, you don't. So you already have that in you to not fear the unknown, right? You can take it and apply it in other areas of your life. And so that's part of what we consider this entrepreneurial mindset. Like, it's okay, right, to go into a direction that maybe is unknown, right? That's where the good stuff lies, right? And I sound like a motivational speaker, but really, when you are thinking about the entrepreneurial mindset, it is a motivational and intrinsic motivation, right? Like telling yourself these positive things, right? Those of you that are on Instagram or Facebook or follow any of these different things where you might follow some folks that offer inspiration, right? Or meditations, right? And it's not actually that far off. If you listen to interviews with different successful entrepreneurs, they talk about being strong-minded and being strong-willed and having positive self-talk, right? Looking in the mirror and saying, today is a new great day, and for me to be a little bit better and more focused than yesterday, right? It might not be perfect. I can guarantee that none of you are perfect. I'm not perfect. That's why I know that, right? And anyone that says they're perfect, they're that's baloney, right? What they do, though, is that the successful folks, they keep pushing and keep going, and they don't let things get them down, right? They don't let obstacles. We all have obstacles every single day that we go through. And figuring out how to reframe those obstacles to make us strong, right? And figuring out how to start small, right? With small obstacles how do we solve this problem, right? How do we move in the direction of the things that we are dreaming about for ourselves? right? And not dreaming in a silly way, but goals that we might have. Yes, I would like to start my own business. Yes, I would like to be more creative in my daily life, right? I would love to be more creative in my daily life, right? And there are many ways that there's so much room for improvement. I always use the example of even Olympic athletes, and we just had the Olympics, right? Even Olympic athletes have coaches, right? And so even when you are literally at the top of your game, you have a coach, right? To continue making you better. There's always room for improvement, always bettering your own time. Even if you are running a successful business right now, what are the other things that are out there? There's always something new. There's always a changing marketplace, always changing competition, changing consumer needs and wants, right? Changing variables. They're always happening. And so that makes it exciting every single day. All right. So chapter 2 goes into talking about a lot of different, there's several in the PowerPoint, several reflection questions, and then things that you might think about, right? How do you achieve goals? And then how do you move forward? You set the goal and you move forward. You guys already being here, you guys and gals, right? Being here and thinking, I want to set a goal of taking a class. Maybe I want to set a goal of getting my degree. Maybe I want to get a second degree. Maybe I just want to get back in and grow the business that I currently have. Whatever it might be, you set a goal and you set that goal to register, and now you are here in the class. So go through some of these exercises in chapter 2. So then we look at section 2.2 and this idea of the process of becoming an entrepreneur and what might be some of this idea of the 9 stages of an entrepreneurial life cycle. And, talking about, there's some examples here, notable early U.S. inventors and entrepreneurs, and some of the things that they've invented. For instance, William Penn founded the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as a sanctuary for Quakers, right? He was a colonist back in 1644 to 1718 is when he lived, an early social entrepreneur. Let's see, who else would I like to talk? Ben Franklin, right? Established this idea. He was an inventor, established printing franchises. There's some examples here of early entrepreneurs and some of their works. And so when we're thinking about different, this idea development, right? If you are trying this new venture life cycle, what are some of the ideas that might be, filling gaps in our current, when you see a new business pop up, right? It's filling a gap or need in our local economy, right? Or maybe it's something on a global standpoint, something that we need. Like when Zoom came out at the perfect time. Any of you that know the Zoom platform, because even the Blackboard platform, right? When the internet, we didn't have Blackboard before the internet, right? And so the company Blackboard created an interface specifically designed for schools, right? And so once we came up with the internet, there was like, how does we get higher ed involved in the internet? Since we're going to be connected, how can professors and students talk to each other? And so thinking about some of those items, this idea of the pre-seed or the idea development in figure 2.18, and then some of the early stage things when we think about a new venture. So, thinking about also when we're talking about the business life cycle and some of the ideas, we have the startup, we have the launch, we have the growing of a business, right? And then oftentimes you'll see something like a rebirth. And so think about some of the businesses, even, I always pick on Nike as one of the great businesses out there that just keeps rebranding itself. And just when you think Nike is, not hanging in there anymore, they figure out new and inventive ways, right? So there's some great innovators, entrepreneurial mindset working for even big companies like Nike, which most of us know. All right. And so, thinking about some of the ideas behind nature versus nurture. Some of you have heard that, some of you that had psych classes, or maybe you've just heard that, right? Do we, and it's not for me to say, do we think that, the entrepreneurial mindset is something that we are born with, or is it something that you can grow and learn to be, right? Are we born or are we made? And this is common also in leaders. We say, are leaders just born that way? Or do they somehow cultivate different leadership skills? Right. And I personally, right, I subscribe to both, right? We have some things that we're born with, but we also can cultivate, that's part of it. And yes, there are the Michael Jordans of entrepreneur. Look at Elon Musk, right? entrepreneurship, right? They just are like brilliant individuals. They were blessed. So they were born with some things. But Elon Musk, if he didn't also have the grit, right, and have the wherewithal to keep going and the discipline, right, and ways of honing skills and looking at the ways of looking at a business model and kind of keep moving forward, right? And so combining those things, he could have just been like anybody else that was really smart and hanging out in his garage, right? But he brought that to fruition. He brought the ideas. And so thinking about individuals, there are other individuals maybe that they weren't born with a brilliant mind, but they figured out how to delegate, right? Same with leaders. There are leaders through time that maybe didn't have the most charismatic skill set and whatnot, but they still were able to become wonderful leaders. A lot of our great coaches, those of you that subscribe to sports, right, or watch any kind of sports, a lot of the best coaches, or all of the best coaches really, maybe weren't that great at players themselves. And that very idea is what also makes them the best coach, right? And so, because they understand things in a different way and they're able to convey that. And so thinking about some of those items as they relate to entrepreneurship. What else do I want to talk to you about? 2.4, frameworks to inform your entrepreneurial path. So when you're thinking about, and I mentioned to you frameworks, I really believe my research is really was and continues to be in building frameworks for individuals to follow, right? We all like to have here's the model, let's follow it, right? But models, everything that we look at, most of you have seen like a skeleton, right? At some point in high school, you saw that skeleton hanging in science class. Or even better yet, the picture of, or not the picture, the live model where there was the lungs and the heart and you could pull the stomach out, right? And it was it looked like a skeleton, but it was plastic and it had you could see all the different organs, right? That's a model. At some point, we had to figure that out. 500 years ago, they had no idea what that looked like. They just knew we had a bunch of stuff and they did a bunch of stuff, right? It took lots of people and scientists years and years and years to figure out what the inside of the body looks like. And then how to transfer that into something like one of those skeletons that hangs in your high school or you see in the movies, right? That's hanging in a high school. That's been a long time since I've been in high school. So I'm picturing one in a movie that's talking about high school, right? One of those, you know what I mean? Those skeletons with all the different organs, and maybe some of the organs can pop out. They're plastic though, so they're not real. But those models, it took years and years, right? It took entrepreneurs, scientists or entrepreneurs. They keep going till they figure out, they keep making messes until they finally get it right. So as a scientist, you're an entrepreneur and vice versa. All right, so this idea of the design process when you're thinking about a business idea, right? And if you're looking at figure 2.24, and thinking about what do people need, right? And how does that work? How do you define things? How do you turn them into something? How do you test them, right? And so that's really this idea of the design process. Okay, so to the frameworks, there are several different frameworks that are used. For instance, something called the design thinking process, which outlines, and this would be in table 2.3. In slide 39, if you're following along with slides, design thinking process that outlines a systematic, results-oriented process to establishing or to addressing and solving problems. And oftentimes, this is used in the STEM fields, right? This design thinking process where expanding, entrepreneurs expand current products and processes. So that would be an example of a typical use for the design thinking process. There's also some action plan tools. We love action plan tools, right? Because they're things that we can actually use, like a storyboard or a mind map. And these are all examples that you'll see in your text. That's table 2.4. Hypothesis testing, right? That's very classic in mathematics and in science. Physics, right? We test hypothesis. Will this sink or will this float, right? And so a logic map is another visual representation of relationships between various components and variables. I think I might have one example here. An example of a mind map for disasters that occur and actions to take. So in figure 2.26 or slide 41, a disaster action plan, right? There are different types of If we are living, for instance, if you work for Erie County, right? And well, we don't have hurricanes, but a disaster action plan, there are lots of different things that can take place: tornadoes, forest fires, floods, all the different types of natural disasters can be listed out. And then under each one of those, what would be some of the action plans that would take place overall? And then you could tailor it to the specific area that you live in, right? So some of these may not, in figure 2.26, we may not see hurricane, but we could see a tornado. And what would be the disaster action plan once you select an area of interest that you could then make a map for and hone in on how you would solve a problem if you had a massive flood, right? If you had a hurricane, if there was a volcanic eruption. And so all of those different things, you can create an action plan from the idea that you have and think about from, front to back and all different variables, trying to think outside the box. How would we handle it if all of a sudden Lake Erie was 10 feet higher and started flooding? How would we look at that, right? How would Erie County handle that? Tornadoes, we do get those, right? And we have had a few earthquake tremors actually around here. We have had some forest fires, and we don't, not within the city, but we've had outside in more the outskirts of the county. So thinking about some of those things, and then what would be the action plan to solve those? You could start then making a mind map to solve those. So that's chapter 2. Make sure that you are completing the chapter 1 and chapter 2 homework. And also with chapter 2, make sure you are doing, after you do chapters 1 and 2, make sure that you are completing the discussion board for, you're watching the Steve Jobs Tips for Success and completing the discussion board 1 for the class. That is, give the class a little background regarding your interest in business and entrepreneurship here in Erie County. And just a couple thoughts. I see some folks have already answered questions. And then tell us why you might see yourself as an entrepreneur someday. Again, this is a safe space. We're inclusive here and respectful. You can absolutely chime in on other folks, right? I encourage you to get to know each other because you are working in this class together, right? It's a team. It's team effort, and I'm on that team as well. But it's a team effort because some of your greatest connections, Erie County is small, are connections that you make in college. Right. And so some of these folks that are in your class might be either potential partners. They might be, because they both are in an entrepreneur class. You're all in an entrepreneur class, right? They might be potential partners. They might be potential customers. They might be potential competition, right? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. When you run against somebody faster, what do? You get faster to try to run and catch them. And so and then the faster runner has to run faster to keep you from catching them. And so this idea of friendly competition, actually, that's the whole idea behind a market economy, pushing things, right, to new and better levels. And so all of those things could be happening in this class, which I hope they do. So you are absolutely encouraged to chime in. You are not required, but encouraged to comment on other folks' posts. And so that is for this week. I hope you are having a wonderful week. And I will circle back with you later in the week. Welcome to campus and the term.